And then, look, my last question, thanks for that. Look, I like to go through multinational accounts and just see if they're paying their fair share. And I've come across one multinational company who has an onshore operating profit ratio of 7% and a worldwide operating profit ratio of 34%. Now, that would send alarm bells to me because that suggests that they're claiming 93 cents in the dollar here in Australia, yet they're worldwide, they're only claiming 66 cents. And given they're pretty much nothing more than a distribution company, because the government does most of their advertising here in Australia.
So last question.
Yeah, last question. Thanks, Chair. Is that something? Do you have a process, I guess, Mr. Jordan, where you line up where you go through all the multinationals that invest in Australia and you look at their worldwide operating profit ratio, compare that to the Australian operating profit ratio, and make sure that that profit ratio here in Australia lines up within a reasonable degree to the worldwide operating ratio, profit ratio?
Look, I'll hand over. It's fortunate we've got both Rebecca Saint and Jeremy here at the table, because it does get a bit confusing at times, because really our taxing rights for foreign-owned countries, especially where, I think you said a pharmaceutical company.
Could be, yeah.
And you could take one view that all they do is ship boxes here to Australia and not much happens here, so not much value is created here in Australia, so there's not much that we can tax. If a company carries all their risk in their home jurisdiction, does all their R&D, has a lot of expenses, that country would want to make sure that they were leaving sufficient profit in their home jurisdiction reflective of where the risk lies.
And that's a good point, because this particular company carries no risk, because the Australian government has actually indemnified it from risk. So in that case, you'd have to think that,
I do need to share the call, so I think if there was
I'll
any
just get
final contribution.
So we have to have a fairly complex process of looking where value is created in the supply chain, from where something is created, invented or whatever, where it's manufactured, and how it's got here and what activities are here.
So that's
very complex transfer pricing or mispricing sort of scenario, but my experts to the left here would be able to explain that much better, I think, than I have just tried.
So, Senator, I think, well, can I first just reiterate the Commissioner's comments, which is that we get to, under the international tax framework, we only get to tax the value added in Australia, not on the Australian supply chain as a whole, not on the end-to-end supply chain, which often means that if the only distribution activities are occurring in Australia, we don't get to tax the R&D profit, we don't get to tax the manufacturing profit. We are highly focused on this question. We are highly focused on companies which say they just are a riskless box shifter in Australia, when in fact significant more value is added in Australia. And the code word which rings alarm bells at the office is when somebody says that they are just a limited risk distributor, which is a real sign that they are trying to push all the commercial returns out of Australia and just Australia are dumb box deliverers. We have a practical compliance guideline around most of the inbound distributions, which say in different markets how much we think an inbound distributor, for example, in pharmaceuticals, electronic goods, whatever, should be paying or should be leaving in Australia for the sophisticated distribution which happens in Australia. It's fair to say that those guidelines are not universally loved by some jurisdictions overseas and some multinationals, but we have been very effective in getting those sorts of returns, which are significantly above some of the discussion which has been going on under the BEPS process. The other thing you said is, do we compare to the margin earned globally? Absolutely. Good. And we are particularly focused on something we call it effective tax bourne. And the concept here is that if a company is paying high rates of tax all around the world on all its supply chain, we sort of want to know that, because It's a sense of there's not much in it for them to play games on their pricing.
Yeah.
But if they are seeking to land a significant chunk of their profit in a low tax or zero tax jurisdiction, we know that there is a high risk that they will seek to artificially reduce the return in Australia.
Yep.
And so this is another one of our safeguards to make sure that we are very focused on not just on the Australian element and some sort of sterile analysis of what is done in Australia, but to understand that picture in conjunction with the picture that they are trying to tell to other jurisdictions.
Yeah, thanks. I know you think. I'll just add just a very quick. Yeah, they parked about $1 billion of their profit in Ireland, but I'll leave it as a comment. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Senator Pocock.
Quick correction.
Sorry, I just have to correct myself. Just now I said that the tax expenditure of income tax exemption for prescribed entities, which includes universities, the order magnitude should be over $1 billion.
Over $1 billion.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Authorised G. Rennick, LNP Chermside.